When I was 8 years old, my parents took me, my 7-year-old brother, and 5-year-old sister for a drive. We brought along a picnic lunch. We could not find a place to eat, so my father pulled into a parking lot in a mostly residential area. The parking lot was sort of divided into two by some trees. We ate our lunch in the car, then we children got out to stretch our legs and play. My parents remained in the car talking. We ran past the trees and out of sight of the car. We saw a big pile of gravel and thought it would be so much fun to climb and play on it. We began to run toward it. As I was running, a strange feeling came over me and I stopped. I don't know what it was, but I felt as though I should stop and stay where I was. My brother and sister ran on ahead. I was very confused about this strange feeling. As I stood there, I became aware of beings around me. Although I could not see them, I felt them there. I think there were 3 of them. They told me telepathically not to go to the pile of gravel. They told me to stay where I was. This was so strange to me as I had no idea what was going on. My brother and sister were now on the pile of gravel, laughing and playing. They called out to me to come join them. There is no reason why I should not go to them. I brushed off the telepathic voices and took a few steps. That's when I came up against something that I can only describe as an invisible wall or a force field. I honestly can't describe it. I only know that I could not move past it. I was very confused and a little frightened because I did not understand. The beings did not frighten me. I had no idea what or who they were, but I knew they were benevolent. I was feeling anxious because I did not understand what was going on or what would happen. I began pacing around inside the little box, taking only 2 or 3 steps in any direction. My brother and sister called out to me again. I really wanted to go play with them. They were having so much fun. And what could I say to them about why I didn't join them? That invisible beings had put me in an invisible box that I couldn't get out of it. They would think I was weird. So I simply told them I didn't want to play on the mound of gravel anymore. I pretended to be interested in the stones on the ground. I would bend down and pick one up and examine it, so I would seem more convincing. All the time, I was listening to the laughing and shouting of my brother and sister having fun on that pile of gravel, wishing I was there. As time passed, I became more and more anxious. I had a growing sense that something was going to happen. The beings were still around me, circling me. I could sense them there. Then, in an instant, and all at once, I realized that a nearby dog had been barking the whole time. I knew that dog was going to hurt my brother and sister. It was like a sudden flash of knowledge, and the instant I had this knowledge, the wall that had enclosed me disappeared and I began running toward the pile of gravel and shouting to my brother and sister, "Run! Run! The dog is going to attack you." Just as I began running toward my siblings, the dog that had been tied up in a nearby yard, broke free and charged toward my brother and sister. They began running, but the dog jumped on my sister, knocked her to the ground and bit her on the back. My brother had to beat the dog off her with his fist. We ran to each other, then began running to our parents' car. My father heard us yelling and got out and beat the dog off. We had to take my sister to the emergency room. She needed a few stitches but was fine. I, on the other hand, took almost 60 years to recover from that experience. I did not tell anyone what I had experienced. I didn't want them to think I was weird. But being a somewhat spiritual kid, I immediately began to question it. Why was I saved from being hurt, but not my sister? I was a troublemaker. She was the sweetest kid in the whole world. I was the big sister. It should have been me, not her, who was hurt. I had survivor's guilt. I could not reconcile this with the God I thought I knew. It was not as if this had been a random event in which the dog simply decided to bite one child and not the other. God actually went out of his way to interfere in earthly events in order to save one child and not another. Either this experience did not happen, or God was not the God I thought I knew. I decided to go with the first option. I analyzed this experience from every possible angle. I spoke to therapists and read books on psychology. I wanted to believe that it hadn't happened the way I remembered it, that either the trauma of the event caused me to not recall it correctly, or my survivor's guilt caused me to rewrite the memory to make it more acceptable, or I had some sort of mental breakdown. But none of these added up because my brother and sister remembered the event exactly as I did. I could think of no reason why I would not have climbed on that gravel with them. So, the problem must be God. I went on a lifelong journey to understand the theology behind God, good and evil, free will, etc. I read, I studied. I even went to seminary. I spoke with theologians and spiritual directors and priests. No answer satisfied me. Finally, a few days ago, I came upon this website and began reading about NDE. People were describing how they had died and were brought back to life because it was not their time, and the realization hit me. God had not saved me from being hurt, He had saved me from being killed. I was saved from death. My sister suffered a dog bite, which required a few stitches. She had no lasting trauma. She is not even afraid of dogs. But I believe, had it been me, I somehow would have died and it was not my time. It was that simple. This took me almost 60 years to understand, but it's all about the journey and I learned so much along the way. Thank you for providing people with a place to share their experiences.